Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode.
I went back in my house and the situation and the circumstance did not change immediately. But for those seconds, I had hope. And I think that what we are facing and what we are experiencing, and I think what a lot of us are railing against the church for its harms is because the church has also robbed a lot of people of their hope.
Yeah.
I ain't with you to gaslight me about church hurt. Mm-hmm. I'm not with you to move into spiritual bypassing. If we can't be honest that there are people who had hope and encountered the institution of the church and some of the people in it and lost that hope, if we can't be honest about that, then we ain't got nothing to talk about. We can find ways to get people back to hope and help them to cultivate it and inspire them to believe that all is not lost. But if we can't be honest about how some of them got there in the first place, then I don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah, and how would you say for women and Black women who may be struggling with that, with the church, of feeling like they don't see themselves in the book or in the pulpit, how would you state that red lip theology is... This is the reason why I created this. This is something that you can see yourself in. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. How would you address those people?
The first thing I would tell them is something that I heard from Bishop Yvette Flunder once, that said, Black people have always had to read themselves into the Bible. And in addition to reading themselves into the Bible, they always had to read themselves into God's love, because white folk did everything they could to read us out of it. I took that when I heard it for myself and said there are all the ways that I needed to read myself into the text and all of the ways that I needed to read myself back into God's love. If you can't see yourself in there, put yourself in there. Unfortunately, we are in a time where most women where women were not named in scripture. It was always in a certain woman. And I never forget one time I just went through and read the Bible.
It's simple. I just had a day or two to kill, so I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? Read the Bible.
I read all of the parts. I went through, I had a list of all of the ones where a woman was not named in scripture, and I put my name there as a practice of reading myself into the text and reading myself into God's heart. I would hope and definitely encourage those sisters to find community elsewhere. There are sisters that you can find community with online. There are folks that you can follow and you can watch. And don't be afraid if you need a moment away from church. Don't be afraid to take it.
Because that's not a moment away from God. I think there's so many times that people just conflate the two, and it's just it's not a moment away from God. It's the institution. It's a different thing.
I had to take, and I talk about this in my book, and I talked about it in other spaces too, but I had to take a real sustained break from church for several reasons. One of which was because my relationship with my mother the church was so integral to that, that I did not have any memories of church that did not include her. Even when when I didn't live in the house with her, we always called each other either on the way to church or when we were leaving church. I did not have a space after my mom died where I couldn't go into church and not be flooded with memories of her and be overwhelmed with grief. The truth is, is that for as beautiful, my mama felt me kick in church, right? So like that was the first time she felt me in her belly was in a church. Like, so for as beautiful and as important as church was to us, it deserved for me to take some time away so that I didn't bring the weight of grief to bear in that space that wouldn't have allowed me to give that relationship and that space the honor that it deserved. And then I needed to take some time from it because I was just tired of hearing stupid stuff. And like
Yeah.
when you are grieving, like you don't need to hear stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And even when you're not
Even
grieving,
when
you
you're
don't
not,
need
it
to
gets
hear stupid
exhausting.
stuff.
I remember
It's
I
exhausting.
remember hearing you tell the story of like when you came up with Red Lip Y'all. I think it was at one of your talks. And you mentioned when that classmate came up to you, you just thought in your mind, you said you have these moments where you're like, if I act the way I want to act and I hear the bells of the rapture in like 5 minutes, will I have to explain how I acted to be like, now, Candace, was that of me? No, it wasn't. But here's the thing. Play back the tape though, because you saw how they came up in the library of all places. You saw how they came to
You
me.
saw
Okay,
how they
so they
came
need to
to
be up
me.
here too. You have them explain to me. And I think a lot of us have those moments. And also, when it comes to your relationship with the church, you share this story about like you've had a relationship with the church in utero, because you said the church that your
Mhm,
mom used to go to, because your mom and your dad were not married at the time when she was pregnant,
mhm,
and the church had a policy that if the women were pregnant, now please pay attention to my words, because we can always acknowledge the fact that it takes two to get married, it takes
mhm,
two to get pregnant. However, the
mhm,
policy was that even though there were two
mhm.
people who were involved in this, the women were required to go up
Yep.
to the pulpit and ask for forgiveness, right? And
Mhm,
you mentioned, um, how even that impacts your relationship when you're thinking of the church, because your mom and your dad met each other. You would just say in the choir. They met each other in the choir. They had been in the church, and he was still able to participate in the choir, but she was not able
mhm.
to because she was pregnant.
She was
She was
pregnant.
pregnant, right? And that impacted the way, even, the harm that was caused. Think about how many people, and your mom chose not to do that. Your mom chose
Right.
not to do that, but also many women didn't choose not to do it. They also probably didn't feel
Exactly.
like they had a choice. They also felt pressure in the dynamic of, this is the place that I grew up in. This is the place that said that they loved me, that they were here for my
Exactly.
development. They didn't put that if in it until I did something that they didn't approve of. No, when we said that, we said we love you if, and you
Yeah.
you violated
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
So even when I was reading about the theology, I'm like, it's amazing. And it's also for women, and there are many women, black women, who don't feel seen in the church, and there's this dynamic. And I think a lot of times people will state, well, why do you keep going? Or like, why do you struggle with this? Why not just give it up? And it's just like, this is, most of the time, for most black people, is as much as you as your own skin. There are plenty of times
Yeah.
where it's just like, just go. What do you
Ooh,
mean?
like
It's called a
I.
church home. Most people refer to it as, when they ask you questions like, where do you
Mhm,
serve, or where do you pray? They say, where's
mhm.
your church home?
Where's your church home? Like I could not be disconnected fully from the church
Hmm.
even if I wanted to. Like you said, I've had a relationship with church since I was in utero. It is in my DNA. Like it is like that place is sacred to me. Like yeah, my mama felt me kick there. My mama worked there. My grandma did everything in her
Hmm.
church. Like it's sacred and holy ground for me as a single woman who lives in Atlanta. I made a decision to join a church, not just for a spiritual home, but because I needed people to know me. So if they didn't see me, they came looking for
Yeah.
me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there are like actual tangible benefits that are important about a church. I remember when there was a lot of break-ins in my townhouse community. And the first thing that, because I wasn't dating at the time, and I didn't know any men that like I felt safe with trying to like navigate like what I needed to do, and like it was a lot. And I remember like I contacted my church and I told them where I live, what side of town, and they got me in touch with one of the trustees who was like, "Now, do we need to go to the shooting range? Because you don't need to be over there." And he became like a granddad. Like he was like, "Dude, because you don't need to be over there with nothing." Now, do you? And it became like, and when they don't see me, when his family doesn't see me, they call
Yeah,
me
sister
like they
Bimbo, I
like.
haven't seen you in some
And then I be
time.
like, and his wife is so sweet. She be like, "You been traveling?" I'm like, "No, I've been home. I just, I just ain't wanted to come."
My mom calls it bedside Baptist. When she would call
Yeah,
church, she
I've been
said,
in
so what how was the word today? I said, "Oh, it was a bedside Baptist, mom." And you know that. So why like let's not, mom.
this.
Okay. Hey everyone, just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast, it is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So, if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. All right. Hope to see you there.